we live in a strange time. We live in a very complicated time. And a lot of what we're approaching now, a lot of how the world is, I don't know, the troubles that it is confronted by include things that are, really have really massive implications. While we get absorbed in short-term politics, there are middle and long-term problems that are really the ones that our responses to them are what's going to define the value of the decisions we make in this generation. And so things that are like, the meeting place between climate change, energy production, the economy, food production and distribution, water management and waste management, and epidemiological diseases, the implications for the structure of society based on the technologies that we develop and the way that we let our media become ways of creating deeper connections that can compute responses to the world's issues. Those things all play deeply into the question of how it is that we're going to probe into that space of the future, and where things that are like being able to process more and more data become more and more necessary. There will be a definitive evolutionary selective pressure on us that's forcing those kinds of responses. I think that we can say pretty definitively that that's how we got to where we are now. That it wasn't about just being able to distribute more different widgets to miscellaneous kids in Nebraska, nobody really cares about most of the miscellaneous widgets that we have. It's entertainment that we're giving ourselves, and it's specifically as entertainment that we're using to distract ourselves from the hard problems that are at hand. But it's a complex problem, because if we don't face the question about the nature of humanity, the nature of what it is to be life, then on the largest scale, our historical practices become a loaded gun pointed at humanity, and we face down the barrel of that gun, having resisted the decisions that we need to make in order to find meaningful trajectories to go into the future. The future visions that we have, the most interesting and beautiful visions that we're able to cultivate about where we can go, become the reasons for what we do. They become the modus operandi that defines the direction that we take ourselves, and the things that we do in response to that are the things that we have to calibrate to the situation at hand, because the one that we live in now isn't going to just yield to the coolest thing that you can imagine. You have to sacrifice. We have to decide that we're not going to tear apart the rainforests until we have a more meaningful way of producing oxygen. I know that there are interesting ways of, using iron to catalyze algal blooms in the ocean, and you could juice the oxygen supply that way. You can prevent carbon dioxide from accumulating in the atmosphere. You prevent the interface of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere with the ocean, where carbonic acid is being produced. That acid is acidifying the ocean such that coral reefs are being bleached to the point where, it's just barren death ground. It's bones, basically bones of a dying world. So really, I think that the position that we're in is a pivotal one. It's one where, like Asa was saying, I definitely do think there is a warmth that we need to develop towards the world, and sitting and meditating with the trees, with the plants, going out into nature in a respectful way where we understand that the value of life and the ecosystemic diversity that's distributed through the system has incredible potency and value, and it's the basis upon which our existence is able to continue. And so we can't let it die. And I definitely do see a great deal of merit in recognizing the beauty and bounty of nature as it's accumulated without any human intervention. I love flowers. I walked outside to go decompress and look at flowers because they're beautiful and I love them. But at the same time, I also feel like we have to acknowledge that we ourselves are the flowers, and that tending to ourselves and cultivating ourselves is a meaningful way of searching out interesting and beautiful, productive patterns to integrate into ourselves, to create something novel from within ourselves, and realize that we're on a path of metamorphosis.